Welcome to the Spice of Life podcast, where we take bold risks, build real wealth, and use money as a tool for freedom and legacy. I'm Luke Spicer, and each week we uncover the principles of ownership, independence, to business and life. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or tradesperson, this show is about creating freedom today and legacy for tomorrow.
Hey, everybody, this is the Spicer Life podcast with your host, me, Luke Spicer. And today on the show, we've got Sheri MacLeod joining us. So, Sheri, thanks for coming in. How's your week going so far?
It's been good. Thanks for having me, Luke. I always enjoy our opportunities to chat.
Yeah, of course, of course. And right now you've launched a new business in this last year, right? You've stepped away from the business that you worked forever, but your business now is still doing similar stuff to what you did as an employee, but now you're on your own as a contractor, launching your own business. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So like you said, I worked as an employee in human resources. So I was in petrochemicals for almost 20 years. Seems like, it just blew by so fast, 20 years. And I started my own HR consulting business. And what I've found, I just can't even believe how much growth I've experienced as a professional in the last, even just 6 months in working with different clients because, again, working for the same organization for such a long time, I got really good at doing my job within the context of the company and the industry. But now I'm working with different size clients, different industries. And so while I'm doing similar things, I'm being forced and pushed to do them in different ways, right? And so it's been exciting, it's been challenging, but I'm loving it.
So, yeah, that's good. So what pushed you out of what many would consider the safe path, being an employee, right? A lot of people think being an employee is the ticket, the safe path, the easy way, right? Get a job. So what finally I mean, I say that your age, we're the same age, but it's new, right? So you've always been I've known you for a long time. You've always been entrepreneurial. You've always done like side things to like working your regular, quote unquote 9 to 5 job. But what pushed you out of the safe path to finally build something what you're building today?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, 20 years in an organization is a long time. And although I had a lot of really great opportunities to grow over that period of time, it it got to a point where I was just stagnant and there really wasn't a lot of opportunity to do the things that I wanted to do to grow as a professional. And so, over the last few years, I took some certified coaching programs and became certified in that area. And I really wanted to find ways to incorporate that learning and knowledge into my HR profession because there is so much overlap. And there just wasn't an opportunity to do that. And I just was feeling what's the word? Unsupported, undervalued, and stagnant. And so I just thought, you know what? You're right. I am entrepreneurial. I've always done things kind of on the side. And I thought this is an opportunity for me to set myself up for the future that I want to have, you know, not just 5 years from now, but in forevermore. I don't see myself retiring, quote unquote retiring. And so doing this allows me to set myself up, um, to have the lifestyle I want as I age and as my kids get older and maybe I want more flexibility to move around and travel and do other things.
Right. That's actually interesting that you say that because like you're in HR, people are coming to you with problems on a constant basis and doing whatever. And I've actually never thought about this, but in that context, right? As a HR professional and person, what do you do when you've got a problem? Like, you don't have a HR department to go to complain about, anything you got. You're just like that's probably the same in any big business that has a HR department. Like maybe they're leaning on each other. When you were working where you were at, was there other people doing similar roles within the company?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first started with the organization, it was like a HR department of 2, me and me and my boss. And over the course of time, that grew to, I think, 10 when I left. And so there were other people, a couple of other people who held similar roles. We all had different areas of specialization, but our core excuse me, our core roles were the same. So, yes, I would say that, it is tough. HR is it's a tough profession because you're right. You're walking the line between, what the organization needs and wants and what employees want and need and trying to find that balance and sometimes it's imbalanced and that's especially challenging. But also being the face of hard decisions, hard conversations, that's challenging. And so when you have a good supportive HR team and even more like a supportive leader, that makes it easier for sure. I would say not easy, but easier. Um, yeah, for me now in a consulting capacity, I guess I don't really have an outlet. I have a psychologist who I see and she's my outlet, I guess, really, right? I mean, everybody needs somebody to talk to and I have no problem admitting that I also see somebody because I think there's a lot of value in being able to process and work through all that stuff because you can't when you internalize it, like I mean, I actually suffered from burnout last year and that having gone through that, I have so much better perspective of how to take care of myself and how to set boundaries and recognize the importance of having an outlet. So,
So, I mean, you speak of burnout. Was that while you were employed by somebody else?
yeah, so and I would say that it was it was like a slow burn until it was, imminent. And I I felt like I knew it was coming. I felt like I was on a bad path, but I didn't really know how to get off that path. And so you just keep doing what you've always done and you put one foot in front of the other until you just can't. And so, for me, what happened is I hit a wall and it was like, I actually can't. I just can't anymore. And so I went on a leave of absence, excuse me, while I was still employed. And I'm grateful for the fact that I worked for an organization that had a great, short-term disability program, and it gave me the opportunity to take the time that I needed, like, that I really truly needed to sort out my mental health and well-being, and it was really during that time that I just recognized it's like my values didn't align with the organization I was with. I felt stagnant. I needed growth. My dad, even at one point, he said, well, it's a good job and you make good money and it's stable. And I said, yes, all of those things are true. And it feels like my soul is being sucked out of my body every time I go to work. And I can't do that anymore. I need more. I need more from my profession. I need more from life than just stable income. So.
So so do you feel like over time you kept getting, like, messages that you needed to make a shift? Like, when you say it was a slow thing, I mean, I've known you, well, for a long time, right? And so I know that you're entrepreneurial. I know that you've started some different businesses and, to give service and value back. And I often for myself was like, even though I've always been in business for myself, pretty much like, yeah, it feels like forever. I mean, I spent 4 years working for somebody out of high school, and then I started my business, and I've been on my own ever since. But even through that time, I was also looking for, like, other ways to improve and to, move into something different, that I felt like would give me a different quality of life, different daily, you know, activities that I could be doing or, get my time back. This move for you, was it about anything like that, or was it just literally like you thought you could do something better and you wanted to do that?
It was a combination, I would say. Like as you mentioned, I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been looking for opportunities to do different things. And I never felt at home. Like I think that I knew from the beginning when I first started working with the organization I stayed at for almost 20 years. I knew from the beginning that it wasn't home for me. Um, and I stayed for the same reason lots of people stay in places where it's not home for them, and that's because, again, it was stable, the money was good, like, you can't deny I made more money at that job than I ever thought I would make annually ever in my whole life, and so, that was there's a feel-good aspect to that, right? But there's also a so there's a bit of an ego aspect maybe, but also I felt a responsibility to my family, right? Like, I mean, I have children that I'm raising. They're still in high school. And so for me, I was planning I was planning to move like this sometime within the next 5 years. Like, I wanted my kids to be out of high school before I made this change, just because I felt like, my financial obligations change when I'm no longer, raising a family. They're no longer at home. But then when I hit the wall, I just felt like going back wasn't an option for me. I knew that from like a mental health perspective and just from a personal growth perspective. And so I thought, okay, well, if my plan was this is just the universe fast tracking my plan and saying the time is now, and you didn't listen to the whisper. So I saw Oprah speak. Now, I mean, I've got some opinions on Oprah now, but anyways, I saw Oprah speak a number of years ago, and she said something that really stuck with me, and I kind of live by this philosophy, and that is the universe whispers, and the whispers get louder and louder and louder when you don't listen, and until you need a brick upside the head, right? And so it took me a long time of not listening to the whisper, and I hit a wall. I got the brick upside the head, and now I try really hard to listen to the whisper, because getting that brick upside the head doesn't feel very good, and it was a long recovery, and I would say it's actually almost a year to the day, to be honest, that I went off work. So a year to the day today that I went off work, suffering from burnout, and I would say I'm still in recovery. Like, I am still experiencing things, and I'm like, I'm not the same person I was, for sure. There's things that used to be of value and importance to me that I just don't even register for me anymore. And I'm still just kind of figuring out life as this like newer version of myself. So it's been an interesting journey.
Right. Yeah. Um, and so now how long, like you launched this new business, so how long have you been in business then now?
Well, yeah, so I've been operating since April, which is what, about 7 months, and it's been a ride for sure. Like, it's I mean, anytime I felt like going into HR. So again, like, I do have a coaching business, which is really like my passion is really around coaching. I find that there's lots of opportunity to bring my coaching into my HR business, and so in that way, it serves me. But I felt like HR was maybe a quick win, if you will, even though anybody who's ever started a business will know that starting any business is there's no quick wins. It all takes time, effort, and energy. Um, but yeah, so I'm working. My business is structured as a partnership, and so I really have benefited from the fact that my business partners are an established business, and they have like quite a large clientele to draw from, and so a lot of my business has come from them, which has allowed me to, I don't know, I feel like I'm starting the race from halfway down the track instead of at the start line, because I'm not having to go and do all of my own client acquisition, and so I feel like there's been a lot of benefit to me in that regard.
Right, because now it's like, y you're basically doing, like, remote HR for a bunch of businesses, right? Like, that your partner has a ton of clientele from their existing business, and now they're like, "Hey, we can offer you, VR or, like, remote HR, basically," and you're building out that for people. So, I mean, and that's good, and I know, like, we don't need to get into, numbers and things like that, 'cause that's a private matters, but is it starting to show the results that you've made, like, do you feel like you've made the right decision?
Oh, absolutely. Now, am I taking an income yet? No, I'm not. But and I'm okay with that, right? Like, I think anytime you start a new business, you have to anticipate that there's going to be a period of time that you're reinvesting back into your business. And so I was prepared for that, even though starting my own business wasn't in the plan at the time. Once I decided that's the route I was going to go, I recognized what that was going to mean for me. So um but yeah, I have absolutely 0 doubts that this is the right path for me, and not only that, like, I have to say, it has been so eye-opening, working with different clients, because, like, I know me as an entrepreneur. I know the level of effort, energy, and time that I put into my business, into not just into knowing how to do what I do, so not just in knowing how to do HR and provide that as a service, but even in knowing how to operate my business, right? And meeting some of these entrepreneurs, or sorry, meeting some of these business owners, it's like there's a lot of cowboys out there, and I thought, "Holy shit, if you can do it, listen, if you can do it and you're making money and you're paying like 30 people or 100 people or whatever, I can do it." So, I have, yeah, any doubts that I might have had are completely erased by the fact that I know how many cowboys are out there running businesses.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is it's actually it's, like, proven, and I can't get into the stats, but I should pull it up. I wanna be, like, eventually like Joe, where it's like, "Hey, pull that up,"
Right,
but
yeah.
it's, like, proven that there's, like, people that are not as smart, that do way better, but the biggest reason why is because they don't know their limitations, and they don't
That
tap themselves, right? But when we're in this society of, like, especially working in as employees for so many years, we have lids placed on us time and time again where we, like, can't get over that. I watched this really great clip last night, on Instagram, my networking, or like I have a mastermind group of business owners that I work with. There's only 7 of us, and we're always like striving to push and grow each other like better, right? We're constantly reading new books and things like that together. It's a book club, but we're like learning. But one of the guys sent this thing, and it was talking about your internal temperature, your thermostat, right? And how like we as people, we like want to grow, we want to expand, especially if you're driven, right? You're like, you're gonna go to the gym, you're gonna do this, you're gonna grow your business. But unless we change the internal dialogue that we have, we're always gonna revert back to what that temperature is. We can turn it up, we can go work out really hard, we can start getting in good shape, we can eat good, we can follow this, we can change our habits, but it will if we don't change our internal temperature and our internal thermostat, so to speak, to raise that up to where this becomes the normal, we'll always revert back to it. And it's like, as I'm listening to this thing last night, I was going, "Oh my god," like, I've been there so many times in my life where I'll be, like, just crushing it in business, and things are good, and then all of a sudden, there'll be all of these, like, problems or issues will arise, and then I start to look, and I love numbers. I track everything,
yeah,
um, but I never track my, like, well-being, my fitness, or anything like that.
yeah,
And I have this really good friend, I know you'll know him too, and, we've been going on, like, walks, right? Because 'Cause he's got some health stuff, and so he's been, like, wanting to do more walks, and I've been trying to meet with him, especially while the weather's still nice where we live. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen come winter, like, we'll be, at the mall or something walking around like a couple old people, but, like, he's trying to get around, and he's got, like, our medical system's failing him, but he told me about this app called How We Feel, and, it's really and so I didn't even think about how they're connected from what this guy was telling me, but as you start to track, it does, like, random check-ins, but you can, like, set up to notify you, so it'll be like, "How are you feeling right now?" And then you should just, like, log in, because then you're not only logging in when you feel good, which I'm realizing as I'm telling this, that's what I've been doing,
of course.
and but what it will do
Mm,
is, like,
mhm,
it texts you, "How you feeling?" Right? And then you're like, "Well, yeah, how do I feel?" Like, "I feel crummy," or whatever, "I feel good," or but then it goes a layer deeper, like, "Well, what are you doing? Why?" So maybe, right, and we were talking about this the other day, it's like, "I feel crummy." "Well, what are you doing?" "Sitting in my basement." "Who are you with?" "By myself."
right,
"Is it dark?" And so then it's like starts to tell, but then it starts to build this, like, algorithm about what the data you're feeding it, like any app,
yeah,
and starts to say, like, "Hey, have you noticed that, like, when you're by yourself in the basement, you don't feel good, but every time you go for a walk, you feel better?" So, like, maybe, and then it'll start to
so
prompt you.
it provides the insight.
Yeah, it starts to, once you give it enough data, right? And it's like, and I know we do this in life, we start to journal, if you're growth minded, you're wanting to, like, expand, but we get in our own way. And then it's like, well, I don't have the motivation. Motivation's bullshit. It's your habits, right? It's your structure that you need to do, because you're never going to feel motivated to go to the gym until you're seeing the results, or reading or whatever. So I found it really interesting. And then hearing this thing again last night, I was like, right, the internal temperature and, like, changing, what you're doing. And, like, I've been on a growth path for my entire life and always trying to expand. And, like, now that I'm doing, what I'm doing now with the investing business, the sales, and like trying to just help people and get out there and, it's all been about freedom for me, which I never really realized when I was doing the concrete company. I was trying to build a business that would give me freedom, but the bigger I built it, the more it needed me because it needed me to go somewhere to do the work. And now I can work from anywhere, literally anywhere,
Absolutely.
right? So, um, and I'm assuming like I know you travel and you go up to their corporate office, but
Yeah.
do you do a lot of remote work now still?
Yeah, I would most of my work is remote. Really, like I like to meet with my clients one on one or sorry, in person, as I'm kicking off a project because like for me it's important to really get an understanding of who they are, what their business is all about and I like that human element, right? Not that you couldn't do it remotely, you could. I just have a preference for doing it in person. But then the work, like the actual work behind the scenes that I do for them, so, like, whether that's writing policies or handbooks or employee engagement surveys, like, that's all stuff that I'm doing online anyways, so again, like you, I can work anywhere, and that's entirely why I wanted to pursue something on my own outside of, an employee, position, right? Because I wanted the flexibility to be able to travel and do other things and, I want my what I strive for, and I think you're the same in this, is that I want a life that I don't have to vacation from, right? Build a lifestyle that supports me in being the person I wanna be, living my best life, and enjoying it, while I'm able-bodied, not, let's work, 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 work until we can afford to retire and then deplete all of our resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think, like, having an online presence and having the ability to communicate this way with clients and people allows the flexibility and the freedom to then move, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I work a lot, like, and I have a lot of people like, "Oh, why do you work so much?" And I'm like, "Well, but the thing that people don't see though is that if I want to go away somewhere or I want to do something with my girls, like, I just schedule it out and I go do it. It could be the middle of the day, like, our girls are at home, right? I can even hear them down the hall from the office, and they're just, like, doing living their best life, being little girls and, homeschooling and, or online schooling and but yeah, we can leave, and my biggest goal right now has been to be able to go I wanna just be able to travel and then work, but still work because I love what I do, and so but I would love to be able to be on a Zoom call with a client while I'm in Mexico or,
Absolutely.
Europe or
You would
whatever.
I can't even I honestly can't fathom the idea of true retirement because I am such a I don't wanna say a busybody because that's not exactly the right term, but I am not a sit still kind of person. Like, I need to be busy, I need to be active, I need to be intellectually stimulated. Like, I enjoy the challenge of figuring something out or helping people. And so when I think about that, it's like, well, it just makes sense to have an online or remote, business that allows me to work like you from wherever I am, and I can serve my clients. I've definitely like I've offboarded people, so like helped with employee terminations, whatever, remotely. I think if if we can say that there was any positives from COVID, which is a hard thing to swallow, but if there was anything good that came from COVID, it was that we learned quickly how much could be done remotely because all of a sudden we were having to do things remotely that we didn't think was possible before or wasn't acceptable. And so now, years after the fact, it's become, remote work has become more of a norm. It's become more acceptable and accepted and people are looking for ways, I think, um to transition from a traditional role, right? So to do the things that they've done traditionally in an office, but in a remote setting, because why not? Why wouldn't, right?
So what kind of like, I mean, and HR is such a broad term, right? I mean, when I think of HR, I'm like, "Oh, that's just where you go when you're in trouble." Right? Like, but, like, tell the audience a little bit more about, like, the services that you provide, like, why would I have a company that has 30 employees, Everybody comes to me with their problems.
Yeah.
We have a payroll department. I'm putting myself back into my concrete days, right? I'm like, okay, because we didn't have HR. I was HR, right? I was handling things like we had an office manager lady, but she didn't really deal with it. We had a safety program. That wasn't really her role to like deal with. So like, what is it? What would the benefit of me being a company with 30 employees, a couple ladies in the office, but everybody brings every one of their problems they bring to me. What would be the benefit of me saying, "Hey, Sherry, um, how can you help me? I get a lot of people talking to me. How do I stop them?"
I love that question because, one of the challenges that I'm facing right now is that or one of the objections, if you will, that I'm getting from potential clients is we're too small for HR. And the reality is that if you have more than 3 employees, you're probably not too small for HR because, the challenge with being the leader, the HR person, the everything is that well, your relationship with different employees is different. And so how you're going to treat them is likely going to be an outcome of the relationship that you have, right? So if somebody comes to you and they want time off and you've got a great relationship with them, you might be more lenient and more generous, right? Because you're like, "Oh, yeah, you're a good worker, and you show up when I need you, and you're willing to put in the extra hours when I need it." And then, the next guy over who late all the time, never wants to work overtime and has a chip on his shoulder, you're like, "F you, buddy." Like, not only I'm not giving you the 2 days you asked, I'm not, like, I'm not giving you any of the time off because you barely show up when I need you, right? And so from an HR perspective, one of the things I mean, I do a lot of things because, my service offering is really broad because my experience in HR is very broad. I worked as a generalist for many years, which meant that I was writing policies, interpreting policies, doing, handbooks and manuals, learning and development.
So you help business owners develop their systems of procedures and things like that if they need, like, that's something that you would do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so coming back to the example of, the vacation requests, right? Like people or organizations often think that they're too small, but if you're inconsistent, right, in how you do things, one it could create legal liability, and also it creates problems between employees, right? Because employee A is going to be pissed off if employee B is being treated differently, and vice versa. And so having that consistency is important. And so a lot of what I do with organizations is help build their HR infrastructure, right? Build an HR foundation and once they have a foundation, then we talk about how do we align, those HR basics with your company's goals. Because, if you want to grow, well, okay, I mean, everything that a company wants to do to grow somehow comes back to HR because if you're growing a business, you're going to need more people. Well, then you need a good recruitment process, right? And not only do you need a good recruitment process, but you need a good onboarding process. As part of that, like you need to know what the market pays for the labor that you want to attract, right? So then you have somebody who needs to do some compensation analysis and you need to know well, what's going to keep those people? Like, how do they want to develop? So, what does that look like? So, a lot of people don't think about that, the strategy behind the HR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting that you say a lot of that stuff because, like, without realizing it, like, yeah, I mean, I built on that department, but like how that ended up happening for myself was like I'd hired a business coach,
Mhm.
right? And then that coach, like, I mean, I don't remember if we ever talked about, have you ever read that book, E Myth Revisited
No, I haven't.
by Michael Gerber? So, you should check it out for sure. It's really good. And it's basically, and so it's interesting because like on one hand, you're the epitome of what the book's written about because E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth, and what it's about is, like, you're an employee, you're doing a job, and you get it in your brain one day, like, "I could do this better for myself than" so whether you're a plumber, electrician, but in your case, you're HR, and you're an employee, and you're like, "Well, I could be better HR if I was my own business."
Yeah.
Right? And the myth is like that could happen, and then you go off, and then you realize you're like, "Oh my god, I got payroll, I got this, I got this, I got this," I got all these things that aren't just related to swinging a hammer, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
and so I had read the book a bunch of times. This was back when I was drinking, right? So It's usually in the winter, right? I wouldn't be as stressed. I wouldn't be as drinking as much. I'd start to work on my business.
Right.
And then I'd start to implement some of these things. We'd start to get traction. Spring would come around. I'd, be stressed. I'd drink, I'd do whatever, and then I'd derail all the good work I did. And I would go through these constant ups and downs. And we were growing because we were just naturally we're in a location that was expanding. So our company was busier. And I had hired them one winter. Like I'd read the book and I was in Hawaii and I was doing all the work and I was writing all these notes of things I needed to do later. And I realized I was like, oh my God, I always do this. And so I phoned them, hired them, I stopped drinking because I, missed the first call because I was drinking, like, and then I got, like, wasted drunk. Stopped those last day I ever drank. And so it changed my life hiring that coach because I, like, had somebody to hold me accountable without realizing at the time that I was my own worst problem. And, like, as I started to build these systems within my business, right, which is, like, now that I'm so glad we actually have had this conversation because I have a better understanding of what HR actually can do for a business, and I hope the audience does too, because, like, I know that once I started to document those systems, right, like, the procedures and all that stuff for every layer within our business, it allowed our team to be so much more creative, to do so much more things because it was just black and white for so many things, and I remember the coach starting out saying, like, he has a system on the inside cabinet when he opened it up for his coffee, how to make his coffee so that it's always right by his assistant, right? And I was like, "That's stupid." He's like, "I want my coffee a certain way." But if it's not documented, it's not duplicated, right? And so many businesses want to grow, and I see this all the time, especially now doing what I do with the investing world and, like, being able to talk to business owners in a different level, even my peers, now they still look at me differently, I find, than when I was just the concrete guy,
Right.
right? Because now I've got this whole different level of experience and expertise in helping people.
Yeah.
But the amount of businesses that I see that operate because they're just really good at what they do, but they have no understanding of anything to do HR. And knowing what I went through to grow my business from like 4 or 5 employees to 20, I think we're at 23 in the heyday was like the most that we had, right? I know that earlier I said 30, but it was just like that was the example. Um, and all that was done through documented systems. And at the time, people were bucking them like, "We don't need this," and I was like, "We do because it's just set up." And we had systems for time off. We had systems for being late, being sick, Um, so you help businesses owners do all this stuff then. That's like the idea, right? Is what, you know? Um
And so a lot of my clients, and what I like to tell them, because, sometimes people are a little apprehensive of bringing somebody in because they don't want to change, right? They don't want to upset the balance or the equilibrium. And so I always say, like, I'm not here to change things necessarily. Like, if what you're doing works, that's fine. Um, but let's look at it. Let's see, is it really working? Or do you just
Well,
think it's
truthfully, if they're talking to you, something's not working. I mean, let's be
right?
real. They might not know that yet, but if they're even considering reaching out to somebody to and it's not even that it's not working, it's just that they realize something could be better. And I wish more business owners would understand that. Like
Yes.
investing back into their business with bringing on a different professional is going to make them way more money. And that's what we all want as business owners.
100%. And the benefit of hiring somebody on a contract or fractional basis is that you're getting, so let's say you hire me, you're getting a 20-year experienced person, right? And what you're paying me to do a project, or or even just on an hourly basis, whatever, is so much less than what it would cost to hire somebody in on a full-time basis, which you probably don't need. So what I always say is, you might not need somebody on a full-time basis, right? You might not need an HR person on a full-time basis, but you still need HR. And so if you can hire somebody with 20 years experience and that knowledge and expertise, why would you not invest in the expertise rather than hire, an office manager who doesn't actually have any real HR experience and doesn't even have they don't have the knowledge and the skills that you need. Um, you're just wasting your money, right? Like,
And like most business owners are really good at looking for the services that they already provide. Like, I mean, and trades guys are like relentless. Like they're the worst for this kind of stuff. They can hire out the work that they do day in and day out,
Yeah.
but then they hire some of the most important roles based out of like necessity
Yeah.
almost, right? And stress, and then they just hire, like, the first person that seems good, like a bookkeeper, like an admin
And then
person,
they just
right?
settle for shit work.
Yeah,
Because
and then, or they bring their wife in to do it, and then it's like, now, like, okay, sure, she's a stay-at-home, wife and mother or whatever, and so she's gonna do your books and kind of learn, but it's like, but how do you expand that? How do you grow?
yeah,
So I love that, and that's the word I was thinking of earlier, and I didn't say it, but it's fractional build,
yeah,
and I think that's such a powerful tool now, and again, a lot of that I think came from the COVID days, where it's like, well, shoot, like, now that we're not meeting at a central hub every day,
yeah,
we don't need this full-time employment to navigate things because now people aren't seeing each other as much or whatever, right?
yeah,
And so then, like, hiring is a big one. You do a lot of that too, right? You help businesses, like, bring on, so now as a business owner, whatever position I'm looking to fill for a part or full-time position, I can now talk to you and say, "Hey, this is what we're looking for.
yeah.
You take care of everything and bring on somebody and do the interviewing and do everything." And now me as the business owner, I can focus on whatever is the more important
Yeah.
subject for me.
Paper money's losing power, but real money, it's been trusted for 5,000 years. When banks print, inflation steals, and markets shake, gold and silver stay solid. Don't wait for headlines, own what's real. Visit learnwealthcycles.com and start building freedom with physical silver and gold today.
Yeah, I can be as engaged in the process as some people just want to know how to do it, right? And so then I can just provide them with the process and say, okay, this is what you do and this is how you do it. And then they take it and run. And then some organizations want exactly what you just described, which is, full service recruiting, which it's definitely something that I do as well. And yeah, I mean, recruiting the way that you bring somebody into your organization is so important because it sets the tone for the employment relationship. And so even just like because a lot of companies they make concessions. It's almost like, you're looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you have this list of things that you want, but you're like, "Yeah, well, they don't really have this and oh, they're, actually they're a smoker and I don't really want to be with a smoker, but they're pretty hot, so maybe I'll look past that." And then you hire someone who doesn't actually meet your needs and then you end up firing them or they end up quitting because they didn't, meet the needs. And so having a good recruitment process is important, because the cost, like if we're even just talking about money, dollars and cents, right? The cost to rehire is so significant in comparison to taking the time to do it right the first time round. So sorry, I just lost my earbud. I'm very passionate about this, and I just ripped my earbud out of my ear.
And I mean, and that's what's really neat for me, to see that ability. And again, why I wanted to talk to you because I think that people would benefit from that and understanding how they can outsource some of these, areas where they're not doing it. I wish more business owners would take a longer look at like where they're the most profitable, right? Email talks a lot about that, like an outsourcing the things that are time wasters, right? From a trades perspective, I always come back to like, filling in the plumbing trenches, right? Like it's like the simplest job that we would ever have to do. And, like, if somebody that was in a laboring role was gone that day, as the owner, you're like, you just can do everything, so you get down, and what I try to explain to people is I'm like, "You're not filling a role. You're now not making $100 an hour, you're getting paid $16 an hour, which you would pay that role for." So, if you're doing your bookkeeping, or you're doing your HR, or you're doing anything that's not your main focus as the owner of the business and driving that business, you're losing money, and
I agree, and not just about money though. The other important thing I to consider is the fact that although in the scenario that you just described, filling in a trench, maybe there's no way you can get it wrong. I don't know. I've never filled in a trench, but for the people who are doing their DIY HR, it's not just about the fact that they're losing money, but they maybe not aware of how to do it correctly, and then they actually are creating liability for themselves, right? So then when you come back to dollars and cents, if you haven't done something correctly, especially as it relates to, hiring an employee or firing an employee or how you disciplined them or whatever, like you could actually be on the hook for some pretty significant fines. So then the cost is even more than just, the differential in your hourly rate. Sure.
Right.
And that's something that I think a lot of business owners don't really look at or realize.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, right? And often they just kinda get lucky. They float by, somebody quit,
Till they don't.
till
Till
the
they
until
don't.
they
And
yeah,
and
not
that's oftentimes when they make the call, right? Like, I've come into the picture a number of times already with new clients where, they didn't have an HR, foundation, they don't really have any documented policy procedures, and and now they're in the middle of a lawsuit, and so they don't wanna find themselves there again. So, not only am I helping them clean up the mess that they've, found themselves in by not having these documented processes, but now we're documenting them so that they don't find themselves in that situation again. But again, like, do you have to go through the hard times to learn? Like, um you don't have to, but people, oftentimes aren't as proactive as they probably should be.
right, yeah, which is huge. So when you're looking at your business, just to, like, kind of come back out now and look down
Yeah.
on your own business, are you building for just yourself? Do you have plans to, like, expand where you're bringing people to work with you? Where do you see yourself going with your HR firm?
Well, I want as much flexibility with my personal time as possible. So, in order to have that, most definitely that requires, having other people on my team to do the work as well. I'm actually bringing a student in for the winter term, which I'm really excited about. So, it's through a program called Work Integrated Learning, and there's lots of post-secondary institutions that participate in that, and so locally I'm going to be utilizing a student, which for me, like, and actually I encourage this for all employers to consider, because the cost to employ, like in this particular case, it's actually an unpaid practicum. I will pay my student because I just think that that's the right thing to do. uh,
Right.
but you can also get grants from the government to offset wages for students. And so it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win because it allows me to bring somebody into my organization on a temporary basis. So I get it, it frees up my time to do some other things, but it also gives me an opportunity to mentor someone. And I think that, and I know that you've experienced this yourself, but in through the process of mentoring, you actually learn a lot about yourself, about your profession, about, what you could do differently or better. And so I'm really looking forward to that. On a long-term basis, I don't know. I guess I haven't really put a lot of thought into what I anticipate my organization looking like like from a size perspective on a long-term basis, but definitely, you know, um, a team of more than me, and it's allowing me opportunity to do other things. Because, like I said, I mean, I really do want to focus more time and attention on coaching in the future. And so, yeah, look for avenues to do that.
Okay, you mentioned grants. Do you help business owners, like, fill out and deal with grants? Because, like, do you have some expertise in that so that you can help business owners with funding for various reasons?
I would love to say that I do, but no, this is an area, and I think this is an area that part of the reason why companies don't go out and look for grants or utilize them is because it feels daunting. And even just myself, from like looking at some of the grants that are available, like it can be very convoluted. Um, but there are actually, so I have a friend who is a workforce, I think she's called a workforce consultant, and works for the government of Alberta. And I think that, so there's services out there and there's people out there, particularly in the public sector, who I believe help, connect employers with those services. And so to help kind of walk them through the process, because it can be daunting and it can feel
Yeah.
overwhelming. Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. I was like, "That'd be a great service." You're like, "Hey, He can get you the grant money. He can get you the grant money too. You can, my services pay for themselves, right? I mean, I know they do, but this is an extra bonus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, that's neat though that you're gonna do that. So, I do like to ask, guess what kind of structure they keep their day. Like, do you focus your day with daily habits and a set schedule of sorts?
I would love to say that I'm a very well-structured person, and the reality is I am not. I am a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. Although it's funny because when I really don't think I'm very structured, but then when I meet someone who's like less structured than me, I'm like, oh wow, I actually do like structure and I actually am structured in lots of ways. Um, I tend to firefight more than plan my day. So I live in my email more than I probably should. I have systems that I try to adhere to keep me on track with my day, but ultimately, I guess how I structure my day is I just look at the project work that I have going on and the project timelines and prioritize my work based on what's going on and then deal with what comes up when it comes up. And I would say that part of the reason I operate that way is because as a generalist who supported a large organization and supported many different leaders at the same time, you're never doing just one thing, right? Like you might be recruiting and you're working on a project and you've got a engagement survey going on and you're always managing so many different things that it's just very natural for me to juggle those things and I get bored easily. So I like to do different things. So when I'm sick and tired of writing policies, then I move on to something else and then I go back to it. So
Okay. I mean, that's the answer. Yeah, yeah. You got me up there. Do you like to read?
I read a ton. I was actually well, I mean, read or audiobooks, but I mean, to me, it's all one and the same. And over the course of time, both at my prior job where I had about an hour or so commute every day, and now, like he said, the corporate office of the company that I'm in partnership with is in Edmonton. So I have, a 2-hour commute to that office that I do once a week. So it's given me lots of opportunity to learn and or sorry to read and,
Well,
well, so I was in my Audible the other day and I noticed that so since 2019, I've downloaded and I've read most of these, like 75 titles, which I think is pretty good. Not too shabby, but, yeah, so I definitely I almost all of my books are personal, professional development. I just, I nerd out on it. I find it very interesting, and there's a lot of overlap, I think. But also, the more times you read something and it's reiterated, it's just easy to integrate into your life, right?
what would be two of your all-time best recommended books for I don't want to label it, but I just say your best books that you would have read for whatever reason.
Oh, I should have had these, handy so Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, I really like because, like, as an entrepreneur, that has been really influential, now he is a very very much a systems guy, so, like, I am not following his philosophies as closely as I probably need to, but, that book I found, I'm reading it actually for a second time right now because I found it to be so valuable, and I think his lessons are important. And then on a completely different note, there was a book. I want to find out what I can't remember what it's called now. It was written by a death doula, and a lot of people don't know what death doulas are. So there's, of course, lots of people know what a birth doula is, and essentially like a coach, right? Like a person who helps a woman. Well, and a death doula is in my opinion, such an important support person to help both the family and the person who's passing to transition. And so this book that I read was written by this death doula, and it really emphasizes the importance of living life with the end in mind, and not in a not in a doom and gloom kind of way, but it's all essentially about authenticity, right? And living authentically. And so I really want to find this title here because it's now I have to say, the author is quite left leaning, and some of that comes through, and that it was a little hard for me to to read. There was some parts where I had to take it with a grain of salt, but I think the overarching message was would really valuable, and I really found, a lot of meaning in it, and, oh, Briefly, Perfectly Human is what it's called.
It's called what? Briefly?
Briefly, Perfectly Human, by Alua Arthur, and it was pretty phenomenal. Like, I just found it very impactful and influenced me pretty significantly in the way I choose to show up and do life, so, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's interesting too because we often like. I mean, I think about that lots. Like, like, are you afraid to die? Do you want? And it's like, well, I don't want to go anywhere, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
I'm enjoying life right now, but I try to live every day, like you said, right, with like just doing what I want to do, and I mean, like sometimes I think that I'm like, if money was no object, like we've all done. If you're an entrepreneur, you've all done those things. Like, oh, if you had $100 million, how would you spend your day? And it's like,
Exactly.
and I think about that because, like, I don't need $100 million to, like, not have stress, and income, and there's periods where I'm like, "Okay, like, I don't have to work today because I got, like, X amount, I'm good," or whatever, but then I find myself still drawn to what I'm doing because I really do love what I do. One of the reasons I stepped away from construction was because I knew as I got older, that was going to be harder and harder to do. The thing that I miss the most about construction was I move my body way more. Like, I'm sitting a lot during the day now. I got a stand-up treadmill for like or a stand-up desk
Yeah,
for on the walk,
okay, yeah.
and I use them as obviously it's not like, maybe I could have like walks with Luke as the podcast or something, and I could just be walking everywhere doing the podcast. But, like, even clients, right? Because 'Cause I'm taking notes, I've gotta do things, so I find myself sitting, and I've been trying to do that, even building it in where I can go out and do, like, a loop around our yard, right? We're out in the country, and so, getting that movement in and, but yeah,
I
it's
bought
because
a walking pad to try and help me with the same things, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, just because you can move a little bit more and like that's a good movement is good, especially for us in Canada, right? I mean, it's starting to get cooler.
Mhm.
Gonna reach a point where walking outside will kill you. So, go for that. So, uh, yeah, I think that's really awesome, though those books are good. I have heard Buy Back Your Time so many times, and I've never read it. It's like I wrote it down. I'll have to probably add that to my list. I don't have my Audible account set up. Like, it's set up, it's not active
Yeah.
because I've been finding myself reading a lot more books, but
Oh, yeah.
I do think I'm like, "Huh, maybe I should get Audible again so I can listen to some more because I am finding myself going for, um, I'm I'm not out doing much these days. I'm, like, literally I don't have to go anywhere to work.
That's one of the challenges I noticed when I stopped going into the office, right? Like when I don't have a commute, is that then trying to find time to listen is actually it's hard because then I feel like I'm not being productive. Like it's hard. I don't want to sit down to listen, right? Because sitting down to listen feels sitting down, to read, or sorry, it feels differently than sitting down to read. And so then I'm feeling like I'm not productive. But one thing I've started doing is, like I said, I got this walking mat, which is like a treadmill, but like it's a non-treadmill treadmill, and so I've been, walking on that and then listening to my Audible or watching YouTube. I've been watching Dan Martell on YouTube as well because 'cause he's got lots of little good tidbits. So, yeah, but yeah, it is tough. It's tough to find time to
Yeah.
do those things.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, you're always going and like, if I'm breaking, that's one of the things that I really set out this year was I want to learn a lot more because I realized like, yes, okay, if it's downtime, but if I could learn something today that would produce so much more tomorrow or later that day, then it's worth it for me. So I really try every day to like, spend a half hour reading something, I'm learning something. If I try not to watch in the morning. Some days have been it's getting darker, so it's, like, harder to get out of bed. I've been finding myself dragging out of bed at, like, 7 instead of 5 like we used to. So that's something that I need to get back into that habit because that time just creates so much more time in the day, and it's quiet, right? Kids aren't up and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I wanna ask you a couple questions about working with me because, like, I was always it's something and I'm doing it more on the podcast now because it's just, a different.
And you're only giving us the good stuff. No, just kidding.
No, well, I wanna hear that. I'm lucky that I don't think I've ever had a client so far since 3 years that's, like, been really unhappy, right? We've had a couple, like, that are, like, on the verge of not being clients that are, like, but they have to get over the.
Yeah.
What made you wanna, like, learn from me and do work with me?
Well, that's an easy one because I know you, I like you, and I trust you. So those are, for me, key. Um, I know that you and I are similar, and this is why I think we have such a great friendship, and that is that we are genuine and really truly want to help people. And that comes through so strongly in all of our conversations. And anytime that we've talked business, like, you don't approach it from I'm trying to sell this to you or I'm trying to sell you on this. It's that, no, I have this information. I know what's going on in the market, and I know that you could really truly benefit from it, and these are the ways that can happen for you, and if you allow me, I would like to do that, and I would, and so I appreciate that approach. I've never felt pressured, and I also am not that way in my business. Like, I never want somebody to feel like they are being pressured into doing something that isn't right for them, or that doesn't work for them, or that doesn't align, and so I appreciate those qualities in you as well because, it just makes it very natural. You were so you were so patient with me, like, I was, so in my deal, if you will, right? Like, as I transitioned away from employment, I had a significant amount of money in a defined benefit pension, and I didn't I didn't know what to do with it, right? Like, had already been thinking for a while now that, like, I wanted to diversify my, investments, but everything that I have invested is in RRSPs, and so, obviously, like, I don't wanna take money out of RRSPs because I don't wanna get dinged by taxes, and so I was kind of feeling handcuffed, right? Like, okay, well, leave my defined benefit pension in there, and then it's not going to do anything. It's not going to grow. Like, I'm nowhere near retirement age. I can't access that money for a long time. And it would have just sat there and been stagnant and done nothing. And so then I think I saw, and it might have even been the podcast that you did with Kid. I'm not sure. And where you talked about like that you can invest locked in funds in silver, and I was like, "Oh, this I need to I need to talk to Luke. I need to call Luke and find out what this is all about," because it was like, "Okay, so I'm not as handcuffed as I thought I was." Like, yes, I still can't access those funds freely, the way that I might like to, but I do get to decide how they're invested, and let me tell you, I've been pretty impressed. Well, yeah, I think, had things happened a little faster, right? Like, and this is not on you whatsoever, just slow, slow, slow going, moving the money out of, my defined benefit plan into the new account, but had it happened a little faster, I would be even happier, but yeah, I'm very glad that we went the avenue that we went and that you helped me see that this was an option for me.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and you're extra happy you didn't self-direct it and trade it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I know, I thought that too. It's always funny because it's like, I remember us talking and I was like, "Yeah, hey, you can, no pressure. You can do whatever you want." And, like,
Yeah.
I was actually talking about this the other day, and I just kinda said, like, I had a friend and a client, and, like, she's gonna do this, and I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And then I remember checking in with her about because launching your business and,
Yeah.
like, getting started, and I'm like, "I know you're busy, but, like, have you done any research with what you're doing with that other fund?" And you're like, "No, we're gonna have to just move it all because it's there," you know?
Yeah.
I entered it at such a great time, like, helping people because it's been such a quick, like, growth pattern
Right.
basically, but, it's everything that we talked about, it's everything that, we've been saying would happen, now, like, silver's just been on a tear the last, 9 weeks, And it's been really cool, to be able to help, but bigger than that, to, like, see the amount of people that did trust me, right? To, like, learn and just look past the, "Well, Luke's new in this industry," or whatever, and it's like, "Well, no, I'm new in helping people. I'm not new in investing and planning and I did all that for 20 years with my business. I just didn't tell people what."
Transferable skill. That's what we call it in HR, transferable
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, and I think that I wish that, like, and even in that, that's one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with this podcast is, like, be able to show people how people like yourself and other guests that I'm, interviewing have moved from career to career to career to, like, to go after their dreams, to go after building something different that they, and then what they had to do to, like, overcome whatever obstacle they were facing to get to the next level kind of thing, right? Like,
Great.
and it's neat because almost anybody that's done anything successful has had to overcome themselves and their challenges that they created to, like, move forward. So it's kind of cool that, you can be there for a catalyst for people to, like, help overcome things within their businesses and grow. And have you been seeing some good successes, obviously, for your clients that you've been working with in those transitions? Like, because obviously you're doing stuff now for people that never had HR, so they're like seeing growth within their business as a result.
Yeah. Yeah, so not only I mean, I have a handful of clients that are all of my clients are kind of they're in different industries, different sizes, different stages of development, if you will, right? And so it's been exciting to see all the different ways that I can have impact. So, um, and and I think one of the things, and I want to mention this because I think there's so much value. And I talked about how I've grown so much as an individual, as a professional, being that I get to work with all these different size organizations and different industries. But also the benefit to my clients is that I'm bringing a much more well-rounded breadth of knowledge, right? Because I am working with so many different clients that I get to see how it's done in all these different places, and I get to bring them the best practice, right? And so, yeah, I'm working with some home builders. I'm working with some companies in hospitality, and it's been really really cool. And like I said, in some instances, I've been brought in because they've come upon hard times, and it's challenging, and yet, it's funny because when I have had some conversations with the really super challenging conversations, I'm like, "I'm so excited to help you," and I'm like, I don't mean to say, like, I'm not trying to take pleasure in the fact that you're going through this tough time, but it's like, I know that I can help you, and I know that the information and the service that I can provide you is going to make a difference, and we're seeing that, and I've gotten, some really, really positive feedback, and that's also been very validating, again, coming coming from a place where I didn't feel so valued, right? It feels really good to get that positive, reinforcement and positive feedback from the clients that I'm working with.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, Sherry, what is the name of your company?
Oh, HGA People.
HGA People.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where can people find you? How can they reach you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, so Sheri MacLeod. I have a website, hjpeople.com. You can find me there. Yeah. So
And is that the best way for somebody if they're looking for HR just to reach out to you through your website or through
yeah,
LinkedIn?
absolutely. Yep. Either or. I'm pretty accessible and always up for a chat to and no pressure, no no obligation chats just to see, what's going on and how I can help you.
Right on. Well, Sherry, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing with the guests. And I wish you all the best. And I know we're going to keep in touch and talk to you soon.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Luke. This has been lots of fun. Thanks, Luke.
When a system shakes, paper wealth disappears overnight. But real wealth, it doesn't flinch. Gold and silver have outlasted every currency ever printed. The question isn't if this next storm comes, it's what will you do when it does. Visit learnwealthcycles.com. You too can own what's real.